Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christine Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. It's Steve Bousquet. Christine Era is off this week. She's taking time off for the week of 4th of July and enjoying her time with her family. And I take already a lot of time off, so I am here. It's perfect with me. I have 2 weeks off later July when Christine will be working. So today we are going to be talking about a topic or some subjects that Rae Lynn Whitfield from Whitfield's Lawn and Garden sent in. She said, hey, I think these are great questions that could be addressed, and we appreciate that you sent them in, Rae Lynn, and I'm going to address those as best I can. And so the first one is about what topic is important for companies entering into the commercial realm of landscaping. So that's a little bit of a broad topic. It really depends on what type of landscaping. So there's the commercial maintenance side of landscaping, and then there's the commercial installation side. Now, each one will have its own unique challenges. So, but just based on my own personal business experience and from the people that I've coached and have been friends with in an industry for 40 years, I'll share with you what I am seeing. So commercial maintenance first, so that's going to be mowing, mulching, string trimming, edging, weed whacking, all the kind of maintenance stuff, litter cleanup. On that realm, some of the topics to discuss it's a tight market. So you're usually bidding, it's price based. It can be quality based, but they want quality and a great price at the same time. So the companies that are doing okay in that market have, they watch their budgets. They have highly managed crews. So they're always making sure that they have the right crew size. You don't want too many people at a property. If you can do that property with 2 people, do it with 2 people. You don't need 4, 5, 6 people on a commercial site just because it's large. 2 people can work on a site for, half a day or a full day. And so the biggest mistake or error I see on that is having too many people on a crew. They're not tightly managed. So you have what I call an audience crew, right? So there's 1 or 2 people. Usually once you get past 3 people on a commercial landscape, 1 guy's audience watching the other people work. You've seen it. We've seen it. 4 or 5 guys blowing the same pile of leaves, or 1 guy's waiting for somebody to mow so they can string trim, so they can blow off. Or one of the worst things you can ever see someone do on a lawn mowing crew is pre-string trim, pre-weed whack. Because 90% of the time, I've timed it, I've watched it, I have dozens of case studies for this, they over weed whack. So they're trying to save the mower time, so they weed whack too wide around everything, whether it's trees, shrubs, bushes. They're just weed whacking too wide, so they're spending a lot of time weed whacking what the mower was going to cut anyways, and it doesn't always look that nice. Now, you'll get a couple people maybe that are good, the 10% of really skilled string trimmer operators that can weed whack exactly precisely. But you'll always want that mower out in front of the weed whacking team, the weed whacking person, and you want that person on that weed whacker just to be weed whacking or string trimming what needs to be done. That's it, no more. And so that's a big thing to watch, is too many people, and then the wrong type of production methods. The mowers need to go out in front of the string trimmer. And you also want to make sure that you're not making messes with those lawn mowers. They should know, that crew should know how much time they have to blow off that property, whether it's going to be the roads, sidewalks, or any kind of entryways, or anywhere the grass is going to end up on a pavement. They need to know before they start that property how much time they have to blow off. I've seen crews spend, 20, 30% more time than needed because they blow grass on the road, the driveway, the sidewalk. We want to keep those as clean as possible so we're not spending a lot of time. So in commercial maintenance, that's a big thing, is making sure that we have the right size crew, the crew's actually operating in the right manner. And then the other thing is we want the right crew there at the right time. So one of the biggest challenges is a lot of these properties need extra edging, maybe some trimming of hedges and shrubs, and also weeding. So, so what people will do is they'll leave that lawn mowing crew on that site to do the detail work. The challenge with that is, if you have a $50,000 truck, 2 or 3 mowers, now all that equipment is just sitting there. Your blades are not spinning on your mowers. So you have a large investment sitting in the parking lot while you're pulling weeds or string trimming or, areas or hedge trimming, right? So really the most efficient ways to do that are to have detail crews. A detail crew can be 1 or 2 people, usually not bigger than that. If you have large hedge trimming jobs, like HOAs or condominiums, you might send 2 or 3 people, but that's all they're going to be doing. You're not going to want your lawnmower sitting in a parking lot, not generating any revenue. So that's one of the biggest challenges I see. And even trying to talk people into running that model is very difficult. They're fine with having 50, 60, 100, $150,000 sitting in a parking lot, just sitting. It kind of would be like taking your money out of the bank intermittently during the day and saying, just don't pay me any interest. I don't want any return on my investment. I'm going to just put my money in the parking lot for a while, and then I'll put it back in the bank and you can give me interest or in any investment. So we want to have a sense of reality as far as like what's our responsibility as a manager, the owner. And the big responsibility is making sure that our investment is being optimized. So we want to make sure those blades on those mowers are spinning as many hours a week as possible, not sitting in a parking lot. So that's why I see people struggle with the low profit margin is they have too big a crews, they have the wrong crew on site too long, and then they're operating. They're not tightly managed. If you're going to run commercial maintenance, that team needs to know where they need to be hour by hour during the day and during the week. By 10 o'clock, they need to have this account done. Or if it's an all-day account or half-day account, they need to know I need to be here by 10 o'clock. I need to be here by noon. I need to be here by 2. I need to be at this point by 4. So really tightly managed. I see a lot of times I'll start coaching someone and they really are ghosting that management on the commercial property. And they're really wondering why they're struggling with their profitability. And if you're going to run commercial maintenance, you have to really have a tight management. Some of the big companies, they have account managers that watch this and they're timing and clocking everything. And that's how they can be price competitive and, B, that's more overhead. So you also have to recoup that. So that crew better be highly, highly efficient. The other thing with commercial landscape maintenance is you really have to have a great marketing program. It's a program. It's not like mailing a postcard once. And you also have to have a sales system. So you need to be constantly be generating, at least if you're not generating leads, you have a network that you're involved in, whether it's account managers, sales, the salespeople. You always need to be in front of these property managers or other commercial people that you're going to sell to, because you can lose a lot of contracts in 1 year. A new competitor comes in, they lowball, or even if they're slightly less, or maybe you didn't do such a great job or 1 or 2 times, or the infamous, we have a new, director, manager at whichever property, hotel, HOA gets a new board, new property manager comes in, and they're going to flex their muscles and show off their guns by, getting a new low price, right? And we've all been through that. We did a great job for years. We get along with the property manager, boom, new management comes in, new HOA, new hotel manager, and they're going to get their guy in there or their team in there to save money. They worked with somebody else before. So we always have to make sure that we have a constant lead flow in and not be caught off guard. I've worked with a number of people who've been caught off guard because they had great customers, but the management team got shook up. They were bought out, and all of a sudden they're losing 20, 30, 40, 50% of their commercial maintenance, and they have to scramble. And typically, the 2 times of the year that you're picking up commercial maintenance is going to be in the fall for the coming year, and then early spring or really winter. So you want to be out there winter. I advise people send cards, send letters, emails. A lot of people don't read emails, so you want to have multiple points of contact. That's what I mean. You have to have the sales and marketing system. It just can't be, oh, I sent an email, nobody got back to me. You got to send a card, postcard, letter. You have to stop in multiple times, drop off gifts, go to the networking, go to the Chamber of Commerce. If you're going to do commercial maintenance, join the Chamber of Commerce. Who's in the Chamber of Commerce? Businesses. So if you want to sell to businesses, that's a great place to be. Show up to the events, the after hours, the grand openings, become part of the community, join a committee, and really get involved. If you want to do commercial maintenance on a large scale, you just have to realize you're going to be doing a lot of bidding, and you have to do a lot of micromanagement with your crews. It is not for people that just want to send their guys out and let them have at it, because they won't perform for you very well unless you have a super foreman. The other thing that happens is that every time that crew goes there, they need to have a clear set of expectations on that scope of work, right? So you don't want them spending extra time weed whacking all the edges or cracks in the property. That would be for the detail crew. Hopefully you're spraying the edges and the cracks. But making sure that each time they go there, they realize what their job is when they get there, and how long it should take, how much and how long it should take every time they go there. So we don't want our crew doing things at a visit that is not in that scope of work just because. So we want to make sure that's clear. They can spend a lot of time weeding or doing things that is not in the scope of work. Like there's certain times of the year you'll have trees that will push off pollen and all kinds of debris. And if that's not in the scope of work to clean those driveways, you don't want your crew there doing that. Maybe that's an upsell or an add-on charge, or maybe that's a detail crew. So you just want to make sure that they have a clear scope of work at each visit. Manage their time. I mean, you have to, if you're bidding on commercial, the budgets are so tight for time, it has to be highly managed. Do lots of sales, lots of bidding. And you also want to make sure that you're networking all the time, because the relationships change, management changes, property owners change, property management companies change. So you want to always make sure that your network is really, really wide, which can be a little bit of a challenge. It's kind of a social job. And if you're into more of the kind of the hands-on stuff, you might have to find somebody to go out and do the networking for you, which is fine. Make sure you have somebody whose strengths it gives them energy to go to these networking functions. So that's the commercial maintenance side. We've done it. We did it for years and years. Condos, HOAs, towns, cities. It all has its challenges. And schools, large campuses, and you really have to be on your best game to make money at that. Next is commercial landscape installation, right? So one of the biggest challenges with that is it's typically the low bidder. So, your cash flow challenges can be really big because they hold money for anywhere between 60 to 90 to 120 to even a year. So my clients that do commercial landscape maintenance, they have pretty deep pockets because, they could be held anywhere between $250,000 and $1 million a year back until the job is like fully approved. So you have to have kind of deep pockets. You have to be an excellent bidder and estimator. You're just constantly bidding. You're going to win between 5 to 20% of everything that you bid on. And also you have to network and know which contractors you want to work with, towns, states. So a lot of networking again with that. Deep pockets help because you're always going to be waiting for some money. We did some work for one of the major universities. It took 180 days to get paid. So if you're tight on cash, the commercial landscape maintenance can be a really highly challenging place to land. Also, when you have this landscape install and commercial, again, highly managed, you want to make sure that you have a high functioning crew, that, there's somebody on site that knows how to read plans and that can get things moving. I had a foreman that when we did commercial installation, he was amazing. He probably produced 2.5 times the rate at the other foreman. And it was just a matter of, he thought the job out, in every stage. So he always had the material where it needed to be. People didn't spend time moving material. They had the machines to do that. It was clear. He always had everything clearly marked out. He had a game plan at the beginning of the day. He shared with the team where they needed to be at, every hour, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so they knew all day where they needed to be, kind of like a football game, right? They have, all your yard markers, right? And then you got to get to the 50-yard line. And then we know where the goals are. We know where the goal lines are. So that's how he managed his crew. And he could outproduce anybody that I ever had. And he left. He went to go be a teacher. He worked for me for about 6 or 7 years. But it was excellent. But again, he was on the job, hands-on management. The margins are very thin. So you really have to manage it. And again, not too many guys on the job. So marketing wise, it's really not a marketing issue with commercial landscape because you're working with landscape architects, towns, builders. It's really it's so tough because the margins are so thin. Usually your markup on your material is going to be 20 to 30%, where we want to see it at least 50% or even 100% in residential. And you're also, when we did some schools, and you're fighting with other trades, masonry, electricians, they're putting the lights up. So, we had to wait for this person to get done. So that threw our schedule off a little bit. And they said the job was going to start in April. It ended up starting in July. They wanted us done, for the start of school, which we got it done, but it was, not the schedule that they originally presented to us. So sometimes in the commercial install, the scheduling can be a really big challenge. So you got scheduling, low bidding, highly managed, deep pockets to manage the cash flow. And the other thing is there could be a lot of traveling involved because you're not going to have a school built in your town every year, or new hotels or new car dealerships or new condominiums. So I have a friend, his crews typically drive between an hour and a half and 2 hours for work. They'll go stay they go stay at the hotels for 3 or 4 nights, and then they come back. So, that's another challenge, is you have to be willing to travel. You have to be willing to go where the work is. And a lot of times you'll see there will be pockets of work for a while. New hospitals will be built, like those surgery centers will be built. So you're going to have to travel if you want to do a lot of commercial installation. And it's a challenge. You have to be really into that and really willing to put the time in to have that type of business model. All right. So the other thing, like, how do you be more competitive in your bidding in the commercial market? And just knowing your numbers. And you have to track your own production time. We track our own production time. We track it from how long does it take to pick plants up? How long does it take to take them out of the truck, put them in our holding area, pick them back up out of the holding area, put them back in the landscape truck. And when we get to the job, how long does it take to take it out of the truck? How long, and place it and plant it? So, for example, if you're going to we have 5 or 6 shrubs an hour for 2 to 3 gallon. And, on site, you can plant more than that. But the entirety of time of that one single shrub is going to be 12 minutes between all the handling. And if you get it delivered, you're going to pay a delivery fee, but you're not going to be handling it, at your yard, then putting it back in and bringing it. So we get a lot more stuff delivered. But if you're going to be highly competitive, you have to manage every step, every process, knowing like what the times and tools are and systems. We did a tree planting job at a big town green in New England. We have these big town greens, and it was a tree planting job. And we were about half the price of other people. I was not bidding to get the job. We just have a system for planting large trees. We had, and the other companies, I don't know what their systems were, but when we showed up, me and the town manager, the public works manager, had put a spot where all the trees were going to go. The company I had bought the trees from, they delivered the trees. They actually they ran their spider around with the trees and put the tree right next to the pin where we had marked. So my team showed up. We show up with 2 tractors. One guy's making a hole, and the other team is planting them. So, we can do anywhere between 2.5 to 5-inch caliper, we can do 20 to 30 trees in a day that way. So it moves really quick. And then once the digging team is done, they go back and refill, stake the trees, and finish filling and mulch it. So it's very systematic. And that's how to be more competitive, is to find what you're really good at. If it's planting trees, putting lawns in, maybe it's grading, maybe it's, planting, and then maybe you just niche in that type of commercial market. We still hit our numbers, even though we were less than the other company. But I did work with my supplier to get the trees exactly where they needed to be. So we weren't spending any time with that. My guys knew what to do. We have a tree staking kits that we have pre-made. So when they get there, they're not spending a lot of time putting, tree stake kits together. They're already done. We're already good to go. We have, tools that we use to measure how big the holes are going to be. So we're not over digging the holes. If you have people that aren't really good with a mini X or a backhoe, they'll over dig holes, and you can spend a lot of time cleaning up. We might have, 20 or 40 tarps that we're going to put the dirt on. We have a lot of tarps, so we're scooping it up. And also we'll use plywood. So we're not raking soil out of grass. It just gets dumped right back into the hole. So 2 tractors and systems to move trees. We use straps to put the trees in the hole. On a set of forks, we pick that tree up, and they can, move it how they want. So it's a nice system, very efficient. So if you have a specialty, that's another way to be competitive in commercial market. In the maintenance end, if you want to be competitive, again, it's the same thing, making sure that you understand the scope of work that's being asked of you, and highly manage it. Just really manage every minute, every hour of that day that you have to pay attention to constantly. Because one guy wanting to do one thing his way can cross, if you have a 3-man crew and it costs an hour crew time, that's 3 hours a day, 21 hours, over a 7-day period. So if you're mowing every 7 days, it can be costly. Or, if you're working a 5-day work week, that's 15 hours a week if they just do that 1 hour a day. So you want to make sure that everyone's focused.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
And really, if you have a bad apple on that commercial crew, it can cost the company a tremendous lot of money. All right. Next is hydro seeding was the question, or seeding, hydro seeding, commercial seeding, residential. Hydro seeding is a wonderful way to seed. Many people do it. Hydro seeder units can cost anywhere between $50,000 brand new up to $250,000. And I'm talking about a real quality hydro seeder, like a Finn hydro seeder. I'm not talking about a basic plastic tank with a trash pump on. I'm talking real agitation, real quality pumps, diesel motors, something that's going to last you for a long time. So if you spend $50,000 on a hydro seeder and at a 10% profit margin, you need to do $500,000 in revenue to pay for that hydro seeder. So you do 500,000, 10%, it's going to be 50,000 to pay for that. Now, if you spend $250,000, you're going to have to do, $2.5 million at a 10% profit margin to pay for that. $120,000 will get you a really nice machine. And even at $120,000, that will be $1.2 million you'll have to produce at a 10% profit margin to pay for that machine. There's other ways to calculate how to pay for that machine. And you could do it if you pay $50,000 for the machine. If you did 250 hours of production at $200 an hour, that would pay for it. Or if you had a $100,000 machine, you could do 500 hours at $200 an hour, and that would pay for your $100,000 machine. The thing with hydro seeding is you have to calculate how many hours a year you're going to use it. So not just how many jobs, because during the day, we have a bark blower, and it really only runs about 2.5 to 3 hours a day. Between travel, prep, and all the other things involved, we're only blowing bark 2.5 to 3 hours during that day. So, if you're hydro seeding, unless you're just doing so much quantity, you're going to do between 20 and 40,000 feet a day. So that machine's going to run between 2 to 3 hours or 4 hours max during a whole day. So that's you have to do a lot of hydro seeding to pay for that. And hydro seeding, so you would basically have to charge for the $200 an hour for the machine, plus $125 for labor and other equipment. So $325 an hour when that machine is running, plus your material. And I won't go into hydro seeding rates because it really depends on the quality of the job, how much mulch, how much seed you're putting down, how much fertilizer. Some people will put down as low as 2 to 3 pounds per thousand of seed. Other people are putting 5 to 8 pounds per thousand. Fertilizer, some people are putting 2 to 3 pounds. Some people are putting 5 pounds per thousand. But you're going to have to be at $325 an hour plus the material. So you have to sell a lot of hydro seeding. Now, for residential seeding, if you're going to do hydro seeding, is it new lawns? Is it lawn renovations? And looking at that, a lot of existing lawns, the way people seed them, we do a lot of slice seeding. Also in the industry is very popular is core aeration and overseeding. Many, many lawn care companies across the country do core aeration and overseeding, and that's a very highly profitable, type of service. Hydro seeding, if you're going to do it in the commercial market, it's very competitive. And I know the states, towns hire out a lot of hydro seeding, big state projects. There are companies that just, focus on that. And I know those trucks are 250,000 plus for those huge hydro seeders, and they have to keep those trucks going all the time. So, when that truck shows up, it's the ground's prepped and they're just spraying mulch and seed. So they're not doing any prep. They're just using that machine. So seeding residentially, it's not overly competitive. I mean, it's going to be a little price competitive, but it's not that competitive because typically the people will buy whoever they're buying their lawn care from, or their lawn applications, lawn mowing, whoever they're buying that from, most likely 80% of the time they'll buy the seeding from them. So as long as it's affordable and it makes sense, you can definitely, it's a premium service. Again, the equipment you're going to use for a very short period of time. If you have an aeration overseeder, you're going to use that for 6-8 weeks a year. So you have to make sure that you're charging for that. And a slice seeder, same thing. A good slice seeder is going to be anywhere between $4,000 to $10,000. So you want to make sure that you're charging appropriately for that. And again, even on the slice seeding, we'll run full day slice seeding, and that slice seeder is only running for 3.5 to 4 hours a day, actually running, because you still have to put the fertilizer down. We broadcast the seed first. There's travel time, there's cleanup, there's setup at the beginning of the day, breakdown at the end of the day. So when you have that, five or $10,000 slice seeder, let's call it $8,000 slice seeder, you're going to have to make sure that you charge for the equipment and the machine to make sure that you're not giving it away and going broke because slice seeders are expensive to maintain. You have to replace the blades all the time. Core aerators are a little less expensive to maintain, but they can also have their challenges. So residential seeding is way more profitable than commercial seeding unless you're really set up for it with those big seeders. All right, how about efficiency, effectiveness and growth rates, right? So the best way to grow is really to focus on your 5 functions of business and then focus on setting up systems for each of the 5 functions of business. So what are those 5 functions of business again? Marketing is one, sales is another, deliverables is the third, finance or money is the fourth, and people is the fifth. So how to grow and expand your business is really to focus on those 5 functions. What's your marketing system? Sending out a postcard is not a marketing system, right? It's like from inbound calls to outbound calls to your website to any type of your truck wrap, your job site signs, your constant contact newsletter to your customers, your paper newsletter, your leave behind. Everything that goes out and comes in to the business is a function of some type of marketing. It's to attract customers, new customers, but also to keep the customers you have, coming back and buying more. And then you have to have a sales system, and that's like from inbound to follow up. So what's your selling system? And, it should be written down and defined to the point that I could walk into your business and you're like, hey, Steve, you're going selling today. Here's our selling system. This is the expectation that we have for you. Next is deliverables, right? Producing the work. So how do we produce the work? What's the system to produce the work? And also in sales, estimating is another big part. Having an estimating system. You could come in my business. I could show you our estimating. And as long as you can put the quantities of the shrubs, the mulch that we're going to use and need, it'll produce your quote. So you want to have sales includes the follow up, the initial contact, and also doing the quote. How do you do it efficiently and make money? So deliverables is the next system, and that's how we're going to do the work. That needs to be systemized. Your money system, profit first is a cash flow system. And one of the hangups I'm seeing, especially in small businesses, the people that they really don't want to engage the whole process of profit first. And I kind of was struggling with that. Why I do it. I love it. It's just so powerful. It's my freedom system. It gives me so much time to do other things. And then I realized I had a codependency in my business, and I had to be the guy to make the decision who got paid when, how much they got paid. I was the hero to the business. Nothing happened unless I put my thumbprint on it. And then when I kind of was like, okay, I have to break up with my business if I'm going to grow it. I have to step out of controlling and owning every function. And then got into profit first, and I saw how much freedom it gave me. But working with some of the owner-driven businesses, so owner-driven means everything goes through them. And what I'm talking about when I'm saying about efficiency, effectiveness, and growth rate is getting out of the owner-driven mindset and getting into system-driven. And profit first is really system-driven. So for the owner that is owner-driven, they need to touch. I tell people when they get paid. I tell the people how much it is, instead of the system telling, letting the people know who gets paid when and how they get paid. The owner is, I tell you, whoever, my bookkeeper, myself, when I'm going to write the check, how much it's going to be for, and who it goes to every single week, every single time. So getting over myself as far as like, oh, a system can do that, I don't need to control that, gave me the freedom. And profit first was the system that I used for my financial side or my money side. But not everyone is ready to give up that owner-driven type of control. They still want to control who gets paid and when they get paid and how much they get paid, and they don't want to move that into a system. And that could be a constraint in the growth of your business, because if we're controlling that aspect, we're controlling many other aspects of our business. And the last function is people, and we need a couple functions in the business and systems to hire, attract, and retain our team, right? So how do we attract them? How do we hire them? What's the system for that? do we have Indeed ads? Do we recruit people? Are we getting referrals? We should be doing all of those. We do all of those. And it takes all of that to get people. How do you train and recruit? After you recruit them, how do you train them to be this, fantastic deliverable team making money? What's your training system look like? What's your onboarding system look like? And then you have retention, and that's, are they engaged? So if you're working in Clifton Gallup Strengths, the biggest thing we're always focused on is engagement. Do they know what's expected of them? Do they have the time, tools, and resources to do what's expected of them? Are they being paid attention to? Are they listened to? Do they have a best friend at work? So once you have a system of this is how we hire, this is how we train, and this is how we retain, then you have a people system. And that's another way, because otherwise the owner has to carry that all the time. And I'm not really that good at it without a system. I can follow a system. I just can't remember all the steps of all 5 functions of the business. That's why, if you're really honestly ready to grow your business and get out of being the constraint, I was the bottleneck in my business for years. Once I realized my codependency, that I had to be the hero, I stepped aside. The business grew 2.5 times. 2.5 went from 1.8 million to $5 million, over 4 million, and then to $5 million in a 6-year period. And it was really a mental constraint. I knew what I had to do, but as soon as I didn't need to be the hero and touch everything, my business grew. And I work probably 50% less time in the business, and it runs way better because people who should be doing the task are doing the task and not me. So the other thing, though, let's say you are an owner-driven company. I was for years. It's a great place to start, but it's a hard place to stay. It's exhausting on you. It's exhausting on your family. The number one thing you have to do, or I had to do, I see it in my clients who grew their companies, find a right-hand person, right-hand man, right-hand woman, but as soon as possible, find somebody else on your team that can support you, that you don't have to carry everything all the time. So finding a right-hand person. I have a client, he, had 1 right-hand person, then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and now he's doing over $7 million in about a 10-year period. And he just kept finding people, grown-ups, who could go run things without him telling them how to do it and what to do all the time. So find that right-hand person ASAP. That's really crucial. I have a client right now. He's working on finding that person so he doesn't have to carry the load all day, every day. Then the next thing is paying for good, solid team members. You get what you pay for, and you pay for what you get, right? So if we're paying people 10, 11, 12, 13 bucks an hour, because that's minimum wage in your state, Connecticut, the minimum wage is $15 or $16 an hour. It goes up. They moved it. I think it's 16, but we don't start people at 16. They're starting at 20, 22, 24, 25, depending on their skill set. But if you're trying to build a company and you're trying to save money by hiring cheap people, it's exhausting. They will wear you out. Cheap people usually have cheap problems or expensive problems, really. So they bring them to work, and you're the therapist, you're their counselor, you're their social worker. And, as a business owner or a manager, we don't have time for that. You really need to hire, pay well, get people that can help you grow the business, hire grown-ups, hire people that don't have a lot of drama. A lot of drama is expensive to our personal lives, and it's expensive to our businesses. We've all had people that we've helped, tried to help again, and maybe again, and they just can't get out of their own way. It's not the business's job to do that. We're not social workers. So if you want to help people, we can do that on our own in our own personal life. But our business is not the place to be. We're not missionaries saving people in our business. That's not the business's role or function. So if you have people with drama, the quicker you can help them move on to a place that they'll be happier and find a place that is better, capable of and able of dealing with their drama. That's a better place for them and for the company. So, if you're owner driven still, and you're in the field, you're doing it, and you don't have time to build all these other systems for the 5 functions. Find a right-hand person. Find really good, solid team members and pay them. You'll make more money with better people than you will trying to save a few dollars and spinning your plates, trying to, clean up after them, fix after them. Hope they show up, hope they finish the day, hope they don't break your equipment, hope they, cut the whole lawn in somewhat of a straight line, or treat the yard in a somewhat consistent way with the fertilizer. It's just easier and more efficient to grow with really good people. All right, so we kind of covered a lot of material. One of the things I do want to share, a couple of my sayings for this type of work is hard sale, hard job. So, if you have to really work hard to make a sale, it usually is not profitable, and it usually ends up being a very difficult job. Me and my brother, when my brother worked for me 20 years ago, we just noticed that over and over again. An easy sale was an easy job and was very profitable, and a hard sale was always more difficult to do. The customer ended up being difficult, and we almost never made money. So hard sales, hard job, pay attention to that. See if that shows up in your life. See if that shows up in your business. Let me know. I'd love to hear the comments on that. And then the other thing I've learned is, I always pay. I always pay at some point. I pay now or I pay later. I pay here or I pay there, but I always pay. And that's why I found, having really a good team that I pay well is always better, because I can pay less, but then I have higher customer turnover. I pay less, I have to go fix their work. I pay less, I have more warranty. I pay less, I have more drama. I have more unknowns as far as like when people are going to show up and what they're going to do. By paying more, I have more freedom. I have higher quality. It's easier to grow the business. I was afraid to market when I was paying people below market wage, because, oh my gosh, what if we get more work and they do a worse job? I pay better. I am not afraid to market because I know this team's going to do a great job, and it gives me confidence when I go out and sell. So having that really high, well-paid team gives me a confidence in marketing, sales, getting the job done, knowing I'm going to have the money, and also the people part of it, less drama, less turnover. Every time you have to hire somebody new and train them, it's a stress to not only you and them, but the entire crew and even team. So, I always pay now, pay later. You pay somewhere and just choose where you want to pay. And I'm choosing the less painful path at this point in my career. And also, when I decided to grow, and I just found that much easier to just pay good people well. All right, so we're coming to the end. I hope that was helpful. It's a lot to talk about, and I know I was talking pretty fast. That's my normal pace. So I hope you enjoyed it. Make some comments. I know I'm getting texts from Robert Fagan is listening to the podcast every week, texting me that he likes it. Brian Rooney's listening. Sarah's listening. So I appreciate you guys, and I hope you appreciate the content. I want everybody to have a great summer, and I look forward to you joining us on the next podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.